Okay, so picture this. It's 2031, and a doctor walks into a hospital room, hands a Parkinson's patient a shot. Not brain surgery, not a skull drilled open, just a regular injection. And 3 weeks later, that patient is tying their own shoelaces again. That's not a hypothetical, by the way. That's basically the finish line scientists are racing toward right now, in 2026. Because to get medicine into the brain, you have to sneak past the single most paranoid security system in the entire human body. And we just found the inside man. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you're going to look at your own blood completely differently. Like, next time you get a paper cut, you're going to think about this video, I promise. Your brain does not trust your bloodstream at all. There's this thing called the blood-brain barrier, and it is brutal. It blocks like 98% of drugs, full stop, no exceptions, doesn't matter how expensive or fancy the medicine is. You could hand it $1 billion cure and it would just shrug and bounce it right back out. Back in 1885, a scientist named Paul Ehrlich, yeah, the same guy who later won a Nobel Prize for a completely different discovery, injected blue dye into a rat's bloodstream just to see where it would travel, and every single organ turned blue. The liver, blue. The kidneys, blue. The lungs, blue. Except the brain, stayed completely white. He actually got the interpretation wrong at first, which I kind of love. He assumed the brain tissue just physically couldn't absorb dye, like it was made of some weird dye-resistant material. It took his own student, a guy named Edwin Goldman, to flip that assumption on its head. Goldman injected the same dye, but this time directly into the spinal fluid instead of the bloodstream, and suddenly the brain lit up blue while the rest of the body stayed clean. That one experiment proved there really was a gatekeeper sitting between blood and brain, and it worked both ways, like a one-way mirror nobody knew existed. That was over 100 years ago, and honestly, for most of that century, doctors basically just accepted defeat. If your disease was sitting in the brain, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, brain tumors, you name it, you were mostly out of luck, because the barrier didn't care how badly you needed help. Real quick, before we go further, drop a comment below. If scientists could cure one brain disease tomorrow using this technology, what would you pick? I'll read some of these later in the video, so don't be shy. Alright, so here's where it gets kind of wild, because the heroes of this story weren't even trying to solve the brain problem. Back in 1983, two separate research teams, one led by a guy named Rose Johnstone, studying sheep blood cells, noticed something bizarre happening in developing red blood cells. As these cells matured, they were literally spitting out tiny little bubbles, like they were taking out the trash on garbage day. It took until 1987 for Johnstone's team to actually sit down and give these little bubbles a proper name. Exosomes. Cute name, right? Kind of sounds like a boy band. But for decades, actual decades, scientists genuinely thought these things were biological litter. Nobody's Nobel Prize moment, just trash bags the cell was tossing out the window. Turns out, that was one of the biggest oops moments in modern biology, right up there with penicillin growing on a forgotten petri dish. So what changed? Scientists eventually figured out these trash bags were doing something incredible. They were mail. Actual functioning mail packets, traveling from cell to cell, carrying proteins, genetic instructions, little molecular messages telling other cells what to do next. It's like discovering that the world's most heavily guarded building has a mail slot that never gets checked, because mail delivery happens every single day, so the guards just stopped paying attention to it years ago. Scientists realized, what if we could load our own drugs into those exact same envelopes? Empty out the natural cargo, stuff in the medicine we actually want delivered, reseal it up nice and neat, and let the body's own delivery system carry it straight past security without setting off a single alarm. In Taiwan, researchers built an exosome platform called SOB100, targeting aggressive cancers using a protein called HLA-G. And in June 2025, the FDA actually cleared it for human trials in the United States. In San Diego, a company called Capricor has an exosome-based therapy for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a brutal, progressive muscle-wasting disease that mostly hits young boys, and their Phase 3 trial kept moving forward after strong interim results. Over in South Korea, scientists figured out how to load exosomes with genetic material in under 10 minutes, just by mixing 2 ingredients together at room temperature. No fancy lab equipment, no multi-day process. And those loaded exosomes successfully crossed the blood-brain barrier in lab tests. And it's not just a handful of quiet experiments happening in obscure labs. Over 200 clinical trials using exosomes have launched since 2022 alone, spanning cancer, neurological disease, and even long COVID. That's exactly why the World Economic Forum put this on their list of the top emerging technologies of 2026. Not as a maybe, not as a someday, as one of the biggest bets in medicine happening right now, this year, while you're watching this. So back to that hospital room I mentioned at the beginning. The injection, no surgery, the Parkinson's patient tying their shoes again. That's not guaranteed yet, and I want to be straight with you about that. There are real hurdles left. Scaling up manufacturing so it's not just a boutique lab process. Quality control so every batch behaves the same way. And getting regulators genuinely comfortable with a totally new category of medicine. But here's what should honestly blow your mind. The mail system was inside you this entire time. It wasn't invented in a lab, it was discovered, hiding in plain sight, mislabeled as garbage for over 2 decades. Which makes you wonder what else your own biology has been quietly doing behind the scenes that we've just been too slow or too distracted to notice.